Behind the Shades.
I'm Elizabeth Watson, for those who don't know me. I was on the show recently, and it was lovely to talk. So I'm excited to be back. And I am a certified mindset and manifestation coach, as well as an intuitive empathic reader. And I am a mom of three, as well as a wife. I homeschool my kids, which is what we were mostly talking about the first time round. And you can find me on Facebook and Instagram. My handle is at the Surreal Dawn. It's my business name because I love helping people live the life of their dreams and come that into that new life that they can only imagine right now. Watching them see that it can be their reality is so exciting for me. And that's kind of one of the things I do with my kids and the homeschooling thing is I get to experience that really amazing moment when they grasp a concept, when they learn to read a new word, when they figure out a difficult math problem, and even better, watching them take these concepts and these theories and these things that are in their workbooks and find ways that that works in real life. How, the life cycle plays out in the world around them when they're looking in the park, or how measuring in science and math, how measuring also works in baking when we're making Christmas cookies together and things like that. It's really incredible. And that kind of ends up being my jam, whether it's with my kids in our homeschool environment or with my clients and my coaching. It's just, I love watching as the world expands and people see what's possible and the potential that they have. It just lights me up inside.
The way you described all of that was exactly how I felt when I was in school. And growing up, as we shared, right, it was like this big love for me. And I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. And as a joke would say that, Terrain, you loved it so much you want to marry it. But take us through when you said you're a manifestation coach. I know for me, I'm in my 30s. I'm not married like you. I don't have children like you, but it always seems that I hear that word manifestation. Well, I'm going to manifest this. I'm going to manifest that. Take us through what does that actually mean? So break it down to as simplest terms for those who may not know.
Absolutely. That's a great question. Thank you for asking. Manifestation can mean a lot of different things to different people, but at its core, basically what it is it is the process of taking a thought and making it reality. So it's, the essence of magic. It's all of the wonderment that happens. It's that, coincidence or that synchronicity where you're like, oh, I was just thinking about you. And then they call. Some people would say, oh, I just manifested that phone call. Or, when you're looking for that perfect job and you're pounding the pavement and all of a sudden you just end up in an interview for the perfect job. And that's all a process of manifestation. And in a psychological or neuroscience kind of way to talk about it, because I love to geek out on that as well. It's the process of our reticular activating system. So that's a part of our brain that is literally the focus gland. Like it's the part of our brain that filters out elements of the world around us and tells us this is what you need to pay attention to, because we know there's so much that we get bombarded with on a daily basis, and now even more so with smartphones and social media and mass connectedness, that our brains are incredibly efficient at narrowing stuff down. Because if we were paying attention to all the stimuli that we have coming at us every day, constantly, we would go insane. There's no way we could handle it. So it prioritizes, right? It prioritizes the things that it shows us and has, oh, hey, by the way, you need to pay attention. So like if somebody calls your name in a crowded room, you hear it, even though you're not hearing anything else that person just said, because your brain, your reticular activated system said, oh, that's important. Here, pay attention. So when you're in a process of manifestation, you're feeding your brain very clear signals about what it is you want it to look for. And then it goes out and finds them. And it finds all these things that you never would have noticed otherwise. Right? You never pay attention to it until that moment, right? It never happens until you stop looking for it, kind of thing. Well, that's when you've gotten really clear, and then let the universe or life or your reticular activating system do its job. When you're super, super clear on something, you can manifest it. So it's just a lot of bringing that thought form into reality. And then from a metaphysical side, which I also like to talk about, it's an energetics thing. And we know now from science that everything is vibration. Everything has a frequency, a harmonics, if you will. Everything has an energy, all the atoms operating on their own energetic field. So when you align yourself energetically with something, then you can bring it into reality. That's quantum physics in action.
In my 20s, because you mentioned manifestation and you mentioned focusing on something. In my 20s, I was convinced I was going to get married once I finished school. So here in Canada, you graduated post-secondary about 22, 23, right? And it was something that I wanted so bad because I grew up without having a family that I can call my own. I didn't know my mother and my father growing up. I was raised by my grandmother, and that's a story for another topic, right? And I wanted this family, wanted this family, I wanted this family. So, in a sense, I was manifesting it because I was so hyper focused on this. Train, you graduate school, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. And the girlfriend that I had at the time, she's just along for the ride, right? And I began to realize that I was losing myself in these thoughts of being married to the point where afterwards, I realized, hey, this person isn't the right person to share in that manifestation. Is that something that happens to some of the clients that you deal with? And can that happen in general?
All the time. All the time. This is why people get so frustrated with things like the law of attraction and the secret and manifestation practices in general. They feel like it doesn't work when the reality is that happen it works all the time. We manifest all the time. When you wake up late and you spill your coffee and you can't find a parking space and you get into work and there's a meeting you forgot about and you're not prepared for and everything, and you just go, oh my God, the worst day ever. And then that just keeps repeating, right? Like you just find all more reasons for it to be the worst day ever. And that's because you decided it was, you told your brain it was, and now it's finding everything to reinforce that to you. And so you're manifesting a bad day. Whereas there's been plenty of days where you've woken up late and you've spilled the coffee and you couldn't find a parking space and all that jazz, but you turned it around. Something happened and you're like, all right, well, I got this. I can figure this out. And it's not so bad anymore. That it's all a manifestation. What happens in the instance you're talking about and where people are like just totally stuck or it doesn't feel like it's working, there's a couple things. First of all, you have to be really clear about what it is you're trying to manifest. That old adage, be careful what you wish for, you just might get it. Totally the case in this. Because you can say, I want to get married or I want to be in a relationship or I want to make more money. And you can be in a relationship. You can get married. You can get a new job. But none of those things are necessarily what you actually wanted, which you find out after the fact, right? Because you just said, I want this. You weren't clear about it. Why do you want to be married? What is it that marriage means to you? You were talking about having the family, but were you thinking about that when you were really focused on getting married? Maybe, maybe not. What does family mean to you? What is it that this whole relationship is meant to be? What is the feeling behind it? Is it just for that sense of community and belonging, or was there more to it? And you have to be really dialed into that. It takes a lot of self-reflection. There's also belief work that we get into, but that's a whole topic that we don't have time for. So you have to be really clear because you can say, I want to have more money. And tomorrow you find a dollar bill on the ground. Congratulations, you just manifested more money. Wasn't what you wanted, right? It wasn't what you really wanted, but that's what you asked for. You were not clear on what is more money to you. Is it just more take home pay? Is it less debt? Is it secure in retirement? Is it investment? Like there's so much that can be under that umbrella. So you need to be very clear and you need to be clear and honest with yourself because none of it's good or bad, right? We assign meaning to that based off of societal, cultural, life experience things. None of it's good or bad, but you have to be clear before you're going to get anywhere. Another problem that people run into is they get so fixated on the form. And this is kind of plays into what I was just talking about. So you got so fixated on getting married. And for a long time, you probably associated that with the girlfriend that you had because she was, there. And so that was where you were going for. And you were fixated on her, even though she may not have been the best person. So any problems that were in the relationship, any mismatches in your personality, you kind of just glossed over because you were going to get married and she was there. And so that was obviously the path. When we get so fixated on this form, right? We haven't been clear about what we're asking for. We don't really understand why we want it, but we're so clear that that one thing, that one person, that one relationship, that one job, that one house, that one car, right? That one total in the bank account or amount of take home pay is absolutely going to solve all our problems. And that's the thing. Well, now you're missing out on all of the things that you don't know, right? There could be something right around the corner that is exactly what you need, what you want, what you've always dreamt of, and you didn't really realize it, but you've closed yourself off from seeing it because you are focused on that one end result, and it can only be that. And so you won't see the other opportunities. You won't see the twists and turns and the development of yourself that goes along with what it is you actually are desiring, what you want, truly want to manifest. Because if we were the people who would be able to have these manifestations that we wanted to, we would already have them. We have to accept that there's a certain amount of growth and involvement and change in ourselves that has to happen before we're going to manifest what we truly desire.
Reminds me of how some people are so focused on their preference when it comes to dating. And I would say that, is your preference a preference or is your preference a prison? Right? Because they'll manifest, as you mentioned, right? I want to get married, but then they get so focused on the form. 6 feet, 6 inches, and six figures. And then they wait, right? Every good guy that comes to them, they're like, no, he's 5'11". No, he makes 85,000, right? And they're so fixated on that form that they're missing out on all these potentially very suitable, very good men. And then it happens with the women's side, right? Like there's could be lovely women that come along and men will neglect them because of whatever the reason is. And I share this because it's so true. When we think of something, we put it out there, we're saying that I want this so bad that I think about it when I'm awake. I thinking about it when I'm asleep. I think about it all day long. And one of the burdens that I found with some of the women that I coach is that they'll dream, they'll dream, they'll dream. They'll get a form of that dream in reality. And then they sit back and they say, it's not good enough now that they actually were able to obtain it. Have you experienced that with your clients?
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's plenty of that, I thought this was what I wanted, but it actually wasn't, right? Because again, you get so fixated on these details. So, you want the specific look and you want the specific job and the area code, right? You want the person from that one specific area code. And you get these certain details in your head. And then when you wind up with that exact thing, if you manage to, you find out none of that stuff really mattered. None of that stuff really mattered, right? Because this person never makes you laugh and they don't meet you as a partner, right? You never take these things into consideration until you're in that situation, right? Like you really wanted that independent, go-getter, self-made person who had that income. And then you realize that kind of person doesn't really do partnership great, right? Like they're so used to being the person who calls the shots and being independent that when it comes to making, middle ground with you and compromise and things, that they struggle with that. And suddenly you realize that's really important to you. And some of that stuff you figure out because you get it wrong. We find out these things about ourselves through experience. And sometimes and often it's through failure or perceived failure and setbacks and things where we just go, oh, okay, wow, that matters to me a lot more than I thought, or it matters to me a lot less than I thought. And it cracks me up. I think about it often in terms of that old movie When Harry Met Sally with Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan, where they're at the end of the movie and they're finally getting together and they're like, do you squeeze the toothpaste from the top or the bottom? Do you sleep with the blankets up or down? Do you, this and that and the other? And they're like, she's like, do you want to talk about, politics, whether or not you want to have kids, religion? And he's like, that crap will all work itself out. We've handled the important things. And there's some truth to that, right? You got to really know yourself, which you only figure out as you go along through life, enough to know what are the things that truly matter to you. Is it someone who's going to be there when you need someone to listen? Is it someone who's going to give you space when you're freaking out? Like which of those do you need? Neither is good or bad, but what do you need? Because you need to know that in order to have a person in a really solid, good relationship. And this applies to your workspace as well, pretty much everything, but you're going to figure that out as you go along. And this is something that I love when it comes to relationships specifically. Because have you ever experienced this phenomena where you meet this person and you're like, eh, right? They're an eh. They're only so on the look scale, and their conversations, whatever, and you can take it or leave it. But the more you get to know them, and the more their personality starts to come through, and the more time you spend with them, and the more you experience yourself with them, the more you're like, wow, like you're seeing them from this whole new lens, and suddenly they are captivating and they just steal your breath away, and the whole world kind of falls away when you're with them. And you struggle to understand why you were so meh when you first met them, because now they're just so amazing to you. And that's where the problem comes in, when you're like, I'm so fixated on this one, like here's my list. These are my top 10 non-negotiables. Must be, must have tall, dark, and handsome, must have this level of income, must be, college graduate, must have this debt to income ratio, right? Not saying those stuff doesn't matter, but there's things that matter more. And it's really important to know yourself and know what you need from a relationship before you can find it with someone else.
I wonder sometimes if when we manifest consciously, as you mentioned, tall, dark, and handsome. He has to have this debt to income ratio. And then if we do so unconsciously, we say,
Oh, yeah.
okay, this is what I really want, but we're doing it on a level that we're not fully aware of. Is that what you mean when you say some of the things that you're saying?
Yeah. Actually, science has proven that at least 80% of our daily activities are done unconsciously because our brains are highly efficient and they will automate as much as humanly possible. Right. So you don't think about showering, you just do it. You don't think about brushing your teeth. You don't think about driving past the point where you learn to drive, right? If you think back to when you were learning to drive, white knuckle grip on the steering wheel, and you're checking your mirrors every 5 seconds, and you are trying, like you're making sure you can reach the blinker and which direction does it go, and you are watching around you, and you like you tense and panicked the entire time. Because like when I was learning to drive, I got this speech from my mom about how you were in a weapon that was going 60 miles an hour, and you needed to be really conscious of that and the people around you, right? Like you're freaked out trying to figure this out. You're trying to figure out like where is the spacing on the lanes. If we spent our lives in that space, nobody would drive, right? Nobody ever would drive anymore. But we figure it out. We do it enough that we gain comfort with it, and then we gain confidence in it. And then now we're like on our phones. Please don't be on your phone while driving. But you get what I'm saying. You're having a meal, you're eating, you're drinking, you're handing kids snacks at the stoplight if you're me, right? You get to this level where it works. And we do that with so many things. I mean, how many times have you driven to work or home or the grocery store and you can't remember the drive? Like you're just point A to point B. You don't remember anything that happened there. You're like, thank God I got here safely. Sure hope I honored all the laws of the road, right? Hope I didn't get caught on a traffic cam. But there's so many things in our lives that our brain just makes happen because it's so highly efficient. And all of that is driven by unconscious behavior, unconscious beliefs and cores and things like that all drive that. That's one of the biggest things I work with my clients on, is where we start. In my 12-week program, I start with that belief because belief drives all of those things. And when I talk about belief is basically just thoughts you keep having. And they're things that come from your parents, your upbringing, life experiences. It's all these stories that kind of shape who you are and how you perceive the world. And that is the thing that drives that autopilot. And so those are the things that drive the unconscious manifestation. Conscious manifestation makes up maybe 10%, maybe for people who are truly into the field. We probably can bump that up to 15, 20, like someone like me, even me. There's only so much that consciously you manifest. And there's all sorts of tools you work with to make that happen, but a lot of it is unconscious. And so that is where, like I talked about, you have to know yourself. You have to be really in touch with what it is you truly want, what it is that you're trying to experience. And I was just talking about this with a group of people because I was doing a visualization challenge. Um, it comes down to everything we want in life comes down to an emotion. Everything we want to experience, everything we want to have, everything we want to do links back to an emotion we want to experience. It's all driven by that. So it's really important to get in touch with what is that emotion for you? You know, in the relationship, is it a sense of companionship? Is it a sense of partnership? Is it a sense of security? You know, all is it, there's probably several things in something like that, but there's a few that are the most poignant when you really reflect on it. And the same thing comes up with finances or social circles or family, holidays, like all of these things link back to an emotion. If you were trying to buy a home, my family and I are currently manifesting a home. You know, there's a lot to unpack about what we want in the home. And yes, being super clear that we want 5 bedrooms and such, you know, kitchen that I could actually cook in and backyard for the kids to play in. Those are important. Like I said, you have to be clear on these things. But it's more than just the, you know, bucket list that you hand the realtor. It's about what does that home feel like, right? Is it a place where you just really can take a deep breath and feel like this is my space? And you can own that and feel secure in that and comfortable in that. And then what do you need around you to make that happen? Is it a certain sense of making it your own through like fixing up things and DIYing or, you know, remodeling? Or is it all done for you? That's me. I don't want to do that. I want it done, right? I want to walk in and have it done. And, you know, there's so much more that you can get into when it comes to that. But it really does relate back to knowing yourself and knowing what this emotion is that you want to have through this experience or through this acquisition, because that is going to drive everything else. And then you can put that 80+% of your daily activities, that autopilot, unconscious behavioral stuff, into the work. And that becomes really powerful because then, like I said, the reticular activating system is looking for those opportunities. It's looking for those little things. And, you know, you've experienced this phenomenon, right? Like you read something and then you're thinking about it, or you hear something on the radio and then you're thinking about it, and then suddenly it's everywhere. Or, you know, you're on Facebook and Google and suddenly you're seeing it all because the algorithm's spitting it at you. Your brain does the same thing. Like they learned that from the way your brain operates. So once you've let it know something that you're interested in, you're going to find it everywhere. And that is so cool if you can be really clear about what it is you're trying to have.
I look at when you mentioned the unconscious part and then you mentioned the emotions, and I look at some of the trauma that people may go through, and I see how it shapes their adulthood, right? Like many times when we're growing up, the sins of our mother and our father end up the sins of the son and the daughter. And I look at training yourself to get better by asking better, by creating better in your mind, right? I didn't have this, so I want to make sure I have that as I grow older. For example, you could have grown up poor, or you could have grown up without a hot meal in your belly every night. So you're going to manifest and say, when I'm able to work and I'm going to work hard, I don't want to be in a situation where I don't know where my next meal is coming from, and I may or may not have a roof over my head. So you manifest and you manifest, and then you want to extend that manifestation to your family if you have one, right? Your children, your wife, your husband, so on and so forth. Is it possible for us to train our mind to manifest in more healthier ways on an unconscious level, since that's the majority of the way that we manifest in our lives?
Yes. And I love that you asked this question in exactly the way you asked it, because here's the thing that is about the law of attraction and the secret and manifestation and all of that jazz is when you are focusing on something, that is what you manifest. And the problem with focusing from that perspective of, I never want to experience this again, I never want to be in that place again, is that the universe doesn't necessarily understand what you mean by never this. All it's latching onto is, okay, you want to be hungry. It's not listening to that never part. It's just, okay, so you're going to be hungry. Like you're going to have lack. You're going to have struggles. You're going to have hardship. And it's really like, this is the work, friends. Like if this sounds daunting, it's because this is the work. It takes rewriting the way that you view those things. It's incredibly possible. And it's what 90 to 99% of mindset coaches are going to work with you on self-empowerment coaches, transformational coaches, because we've now understood that it takes rewriting those scripts, those inner dialogues, before we can start to move into a place where we're doing this in a healthy way, right? So it's not about saying, I just want to get out of debt, because what is reverberating out into the universe is debt, 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 debt. So instead, it takes talking about how I want to be in a place of security. I want to have effortless abundance. I want to have ease and plenty. It's the same thing, but it's about giving the message the right way. And the other thing that happens when you flip that script, right? Like it's a simple semantics, it seems like, but our brains and the way the energetics and the universe work is it matters. It's important because when we do talk about it from that perspective, suddenly we notice more abundance. We notice more of what we already have. And that's not to say that, if you're in poverty and you're struggling, you're just not seeing that you have all of these things around you. I'm not saying that. Okay. That's not what I mean. I'm saying that you start to appreciate the things you do have. And if it's basically just that you woke up breathing today, well, then that is a reason to be celebrating. And I get that there's hard times, but that means that you have a chance to change it. It means that there's one more day where you can work towards what it is you truly desire. And it really does come down to a choice. Like, do you want to focus on the things you don't have? Because how does that make you feel? Right? Like, it doesn't feel very good. None of us like that. We don't want to stay in that place. So shift the focus on what it is you do want, not because you want to feel the lack of it, but because you want to invite more of it, because you want to find more of it. And when you do that, you do end up noticing way more than you realize of what you already have, of ways that you have the ability to invite more of it into your life. There's so much that the world gives us. We have the chance to go out and experience trees and fresh air, and right? Like changing of the seasons, the fact that we're here, that we get to experience this life, the sun rises and sets, even the simplicity of that is a place that you can sit in some gratitude with. And the more you appreciate, the more you focus on that, the more you bring yourself into this energetic alignment, the more you rewire the way your brain is thinking, and the more you're going to start to invite in. So it really does take that, like, flip the script, not from what I don't want anymore to what I do want, and connecting with that. So powerful.
So, Elizabeth, as we close today, what advice do you want to leave with my audience in regards to controlling their power of manifestation going forward?
Well, the first thing I want to tell you is that it is not selfish to want more. Okay. There's this cultural, societal thing that the American dream is totally possible, or, whatever, wherever you are, that wanting more is the promise, the carrot that we're held to keep us working towards it. But that's also like you're greedy if you want more than you have because other people have less. It's not true. It is not selfish to want more. It is not selfish to want to better yourself. That is part of why we're here. And it is totally possible for you. We're living in a time where there are more millionaires, billionaires, trillionaires than ever before. There is not lack because some people have more. There are opportunities to create more everywhere you look. And there's ways for you to create what you want. And it is not selfish to want it. It is not impossible for you to get there. It is, in in my opinion, the reason why we have these goals, these dreams, these ideal lives in our minds, these daydreams that we just can't let go of, it's because that's the universe or the divine or whatever you want to call it, some higher power showing you the life that you're meant to be living. It's not just that it's possible for you, it's what's meant to be yours. But we have free will. So you get the choice of, are you going to go for it or not? And it's absolutely possible to build to it yourself, but it's also possible to quantum leap and get there a little faster by working with somebody to help you, because we all need help. I mean, the phrase "it takes a village" is true in all aspects of our lives. We should not be doing it alone. We are not solitary creatures. We're societal creatures for a reason.